Welcome to the Local Insights podcast, episode 2. Today, we're going to be talking about Google listing optimization. Google listing optimization is a cool one for Local Insights because that really is the kind of forefront of what we do. We support thousands of businesses all over the globe, actually. And we know exactly what to do to get your businesses in front of the right people. Today, I'm going to be partnered up with Aaron. Aaron, I just got to give a little intro. He's just about to approach his 5-year anniversary. Aaron, happy 5-year anniversary.
Thank you, mate.
Imminently coming.
Long time.
Is very exciting.
Yeah.
Aaron heads up our Google listing optimization team and is a really good guy to listen to, knows all the tricks, knows all the strategies, knows how to get those Google listings moving up the rankings, but also how to make sure it gets loads of engagement as well. So yeah, welcome to the pod, Aaron.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
No, it's good. I mean, yeah. So let's jump in. Let's get into some of the stuff. Help out some businesses with some tips. So I guess the first thing is the importance of Google listings and the transformative impact it can have on a local business.
Well, a Google listing is like I'd say one of the most important presences you can have online. I would say. I think it's the easiest one to get going. It's the most affordable one to have. And it's a no-brainer. I think if you don't have one, you're just not on Google. That's as basic as it is. It is we often refer to it as a virtual shop window. It's it's like when people walk down the high street, but they're walking down the high street at Google, they need to see that shop window.
It's the first thing you see, right, as well. So if you're doing a local search for a local business, let's say you're a I don't know, restaurant.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a restaurant.
Yeah.
Customers are looking for you.
Yeah.
They're going to do what? They're going to search, I don't know, restaurants near me.
Yeah.
Probably
Simple
go onto
searches.
Google, restaurant near me. And what do they see? What's the first thing?
Well, I think what you need to do is put yourself in the head of the customer and what would they want to see. So when I'm looking for somewhere, if I'm going, let's stick with restaurant, for example, I need to see food. I need to see what it's like. I can't read and understand exactly what the food's going to be like. So when they Google, what they're presented with is a list of businesses, other competition in your area, things like that. With names, addresses, phone numbers, website links to menus, links to order online, basically everything that they could know about your business, they can get in 20 seconds. So in those 20 seconds, you've got to be able to grab them in and show them what you're offering.
Makes sense. And it's it's the most engaged part of the Google page, isn't it, as well? Visually, it's pretty out there in front of you, right in front of you.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, again, sticking with restaurant, if I'm looking for a restaurant, I don't want to see a website with just letters and links and stuff. I want to see something that's going to grab me. So it is the most engaging page. It's right at the top. And I think no one's ever going to go onto Google and miss it. It's the first thing you see after those sponsored ads, which people, however they feel, they tend to go past them. But the first bit that's going to grab them is that map, and it tells them how far away you are, your like I said, your address, number, everything you need.
No, for sure. And then how can you optimize a Google listing to significantly impact visibility and engagement? What's the key from your perspective?
So the key in terms of optimizing and trying to get yourself into a better position, because ultimately you want to be at the top, right? You want to be...
Every business wants to be at the top, right?
Yeah, every business. So
it takes time though, doesn't it?
Does take time, and there's a lot of things that contribute to that. So I would say that there's a few common mistakes that I notice with listings whenever I come across them, whether I'm working with a new client or even, because I've been doing this for 5 years in my day-to-day life when I'm looking for a business. And that will be things like mismatch information. So whether they've got different information on a website and the listing, or their social media and their listing, you want to see the same information. If I find a business that says it's got their opening hours on Facebook are different to on their Google listing, I don't know which ones to trust. And immediately I don't trust that business as much.
Move on to the next, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you need that consistent information.
What's the number? So for our viewers, right, they've all got Google listings. Yep. Most of our guys are business owners. Yep. What's the number one mistake that you've seen when you go through the onboarding for a client?
So I would say there's a couple. I would say one is that mismatched information.
Yeah.
The just not having the same information everywhere. And I think that's really important from Google's point of view, not just from a customer perspective, but the more information we can give Google that matches, the better it's going to perform.
And from a customer experience point of view as well, mate, if you got your hours wrong and people come to your shop and you're not open, that's a massive negative.
Well, if I come to your shop and it says you're open and you're not, I'm not coming again.
Could even be a bad review.
Well, exactly. All I've got to do is have a bad day and I'm going to leave, not personally me, but people might leave a bad review there.
What's the other one? You said there's two.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple. One of them is that. The second one, I would say, is purely just not having anything on there, not telling people or Google what your business is. Okay, you're a restaurant. What sort of restaurant are you? What sort of food do you do? What do you offer? Why should I come to you? What is your USP? Every business starts up with something that they think makes them special and that separates them. And if that's not on there, then how do I know what it is for you? How do I know why I should come to you?
Reoccurring theme, it's like for us, we speak to so many businesses every single day, and every time that you initiate an onboarding, a new client comes on board, it's almost a given that on their Google listing, they do not shout about what they do, who they are, what makes them special, right?
Yeah.
No one's doing it.
Yeah, there's one key section I see, which is the business description, just like a little about us. Hasn't got to be long. You can only put a maximum of about 750 characters, but 90% of the time they're empty or a one sentence. And it just doesn't tell me enough about your business. It doesn't make you stand out. Other than that, as I said, it's the basics, the things like the photos, the things like that are just, everyone is so visual now. Everyone's got such a short attention span as well. You have to be able to be gripped in those first few seconds. And if, like I said, if I can't see your food, I'm not going to come down.
Yeah. Interesting. I want to ask you a couple of questions as well, a couple of things that sometimes come up, and see what your thoughts are on this. So if you're a local business and you're trying to push your Google listing in the right direction, there's a couple of things that I think we should always look at. How important is the business category? It's one of the first things that you tell Google you are, but there are so many different categories to choose from. How important is it to get the right one? And how many businesses actually, in your opinion, don't get the right one? So
I think on the categories, there's two separate bits. So you have your primary one, which is the one that you show as. So whether you're like we said, restaurant, card shop, gift shop, whatever, that's your main one. That's what you define your business as a whole. And then you do have the option for additional ones. Now, again, the majority of businesses I find don't fill these additional ones out. And it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to pin one business down to one specific category because there is about 4,000 categories on Google. There's a lot. But I would say getting that main one spot on, that primary one spot on, is quite important, because that's going to be the one driver for you.
That's a signal, isn't it? Isn't that, like, from Google's perspective, if you say you're a photographer and that's your main category, that's what it's going to rank you for?
Yeah, that's because essentially you're telling Google that's the one thing that I do and that's the one thing that I want to be found for. Yeah. So if you haven't got that, then Google's not going to know to rank you for it.
And it's a cool little trick as well. So if you've got your core category, great, that's one signal. But then if you have multiple other categories in the subcategories, like you were saying, that's like multiple other signals to get you ranking for other things, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't tell Google that you offer it, then how does Google know to push you for it?
Yeah.
It's all algorithm based, and Google's obviously incredibly smart, but it's not a fortune teller. It's not, it can't do all of that stuff unless you tell it. So you have to make sure that you fill them out.
Interesting. And also, this is more for a London-based business, but I just think it's a really good little tidbit. Address. So when you're in a big kind of, I guess, big area like London, like Manchester, like Leeds, like Birmingham, sometimes you have subdivisions on your address. Like, for instance, if you're in London, but actually you're in Shoreditch, your address won't say Shoreditch, it will say London, right?
Yeah, so when you automatically fill it out, it does that, like everyone's probably experienced it. When you start filling out your address, it just pre-populates.
Yeah.
But what it won't do is add that local area you're in. And if you don't add that in, no one's going to look. I'm not going to go and search restaurant London, because I'm not going to travel from one side to the other. I want to know what's in my area, what's in Shoreditch, and you have to add that additional line in. And when you've got it in there, Google then recognises, okay, this is where they are, and pushes you for those searches in that area.
Interesting.
Super important.
Yeah, I think so. So once you've laid down the foundations for a Google listing, there's a load more kind of, I guess, tips strategies, things that you do when you onboard clients. But how do you relentlessly, like, how do you optimize listings? Like, how do you get them moving up the rankings, and how do you increase engagement? Like, what's the kind of key?
So I would say my number one key that I say to a lot of my clients is consistency. Okay. I think it's never a quick and instant thing. It's never going to happen overnight. And the consistency brings more information. If you're posting once a month, once a week, whatever you're doing it over a sustained period of time, Google constantly has fresh information and information to work with. So I would say consistency is one of the best things for optimization. And then beyond that, it's again, making sure everything's up to date, making sure you've got your latest promotions on there. If you don't put your promotions on Google, you are missing the biggest platform to have them on. Your social media is great. It's great to have it on there, but that's really for sometimes just for your existing community. So you want to get it to people who don't know who you are yet, and that be their reason to come in. So I would say consistency is key, updates is key, and just basically putting everything on there that makes you special.
And then if you look at other thing I find really interesting as well, like Google listings now are pretty much like mini websites. They've got so much stuff like going on in them. And you've mentioned there are a few things like the updates where you can promote like things like events or product promotions, etc., things like that, which is super important. What are some of the other features now that Google push? Because you got like reviews, you've got products, you got loads of stuff.
Yep.
So like, what are some of those things that you think are important in addition to the kind of promotional updates and things?
So in addition to the updates, there's a few things that we definitely take advantage of. And one being, you mentioned it there, product posts.
Yeah.
They're super important. Whether you actually sell products or whether you offer services, you can utilize this section.
That's a cool little tip as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you do like local insights, like the Google listing optimizer, so anybody that wants to supercharge their Google listing, awesome. So we've got a little product on there. You can't necessarily, it's not like a tangible buy thing,
exactly,
it's a service, but we've got that under the product range. And it doesn't just give great information, but it looks really cool on your listing.
Yeah. Well, it's in a more prominent position than the standard event posts that sort of we run and rotate and update. So I would only really use it for things that are consistent. So we're always going to offer this product, right? So it's always going to be on there. But yeah, it doesn't have to be something tangible. It can be a treatment. It can be a service. It can be, basically whatever you want.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And utilizing them, they're super good, super great, and it's a much more attractive and again prominent way of getting it on the listing.
And that helps with engagement.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, if more people can see it, if it's higher up, again, bringing it back to this short attention span we have, if it's higher up your page, there might only be 75% of people that make it halfway down and only 25% make it all the way to the bottom.
So
you're missing out on 50% of people that view your listing if it's not in a more prominent position. Definitely make sure that's on there. And then Q&As are great. You can, whether it's people asking you questions or even if you ask yourself them and get them on there, you might have a few frequently asked questions. So for something like the Google Listing Optimizer, is this contracted? We can instantly put that on there and anyone who's got that question will find it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Q&As, just, what questions your customers ask. So get it out there. Sounds good. And then you've got reviews as well. Reviews are interesting. We're seeing a lot of clients using the old Google review cards.
Yeah.
If you don't know Google review cards, you've got a cool little card. You tap it against someone's phone, one of your customers, and it just launches your Google review page, gets you a 5-star review in literally seconds. But reviews are really important as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're super important from Google's perspective because at the end of the day, Google's just one huge online directory, right? And all Google want to do is push businesses that are, worth me going to. If Google eventually started providing loads of rubbish information and businesses that were out of date or things like that, eventually, it'd take a long time, but eventually people would stop using it. So why are they going to push those businesses? They're going to push the ones that are great and the ones that they know are active and getting great feedback. And if you're one of those businesses, you're more likely to be pushed. So that's great from a Google perspective, but also from my perspective. As a consumer, if I can see you're consistently getting good reviews and loads of 5 stars and great feedback, and also if you're responding to them, I mean, there's nothing wrong with everyone's going to have, a bad day at some point, right?
Yeah.
So if you do get a negative review, it's not end of the world. Get a great response up there. Show people that you can deal with this and work with the feedback and adapt your service. But they're super important. Whether, as I said, from Google's point of view or as a consumer looking, I want to know that you're offering a great service.
Key. I think it guides every decision on where people want to spend their money. So it's super important. Number one tip as well. I'm just going to give my number one tip. I speak to a lot of business owners and they always ask me, how do I generate more reviews? And it's the simplest kind of answer, I reckon. And it's almost a bit like annoying to say it, but you just need to ask.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people just don't ask.
Yep.
We find it as a business, like we get some amazing feedback and sometimes we forget to ask. And it's like, well, come on.
Yeah.
Like if we ask, people give.
Yeah,
if they've had a good experience, so just ask.
Yeah, well, I think I was speaking to a client the other day and they were saying, how do I get more reviews and all that sort of conversation? And I said, at the end of the day, if you have a bad experience, you're more happy to go out of your way to share that bad experience, but everyone expects a good experience. So because it's expected, it's like, why should I go out of my way to do this?
Yeah, exactly.
And also, it's just not something that comes into your head. So simply ask. That's all you've got to do.
It's that easy,
you ask,
and that review has value, right? Because if I can get more of my customers to put reviews on, I am literally going to enhance my engagement and conversion. More people are going to come in because we know, like some ridiculous stat. I'm kind of finger in the air here, but it is something like 4 out of 5 searches. They'll look at reviews to guide whether they want to use you or not. So the more good ones you got, the better the chance you have of generating more customers.
Definitely. I wouldn't throw my money somewhere if I wasn't guaranteed that I was going to get a good service. I'm quite tight with my money personally. So, I'm not going to...
definitely are quite tight with your money, Aaron. That's fair.
I'm not going to risk it. I'd rather know and go to a place that I can see where people have had a great experience before and me get that experience as well, rather than taking the off chance.
No, fair. Okay, so there's loads of stuff, right, that businesses can do. It seems like there's quite a lot of new features, which is great on Google. Like they're bringing out stuff all the time. Time is really key. Mm-hmm. How frequently, like how relentless do you have to be with your updates? Like, can you just literally plug it in and let it rock? Or do you need to be really proactive? Like how regularly do you need to post like to get results? Because you work with literally hundreds of listings. Yeah. Well, thousands of listings across your team, and you see what it takes. So how relentless do you have to be, and how patient do you need to be as a customer to let the process work?
So I'd bring it back to one of my first points and one of the most important things for me, which is consistency. Yeah. And of course, consistency takes time. So in terms of like a time scale, you don't expect miracles overnight. You're talking months. You're talking it's going to take time to work and build this up.
There's no like magic switch, is there? That's the problem. And you've got to understand that as if you're jumping on board or if you're doing it yourself, whatever, it takes time. Don't give up because you're not getting instant results.
Exactly. If there was a switch, we'd be doing this from a beach in Hawaii.
Oh, that would be magic.
But it takes time. Definitely takes time because your listing's going from a point of no information to trying to give Google all this information. And just because you said it once doesn't mean Google's going to listen.
Is it true as well that actually on that point you've almost got to relentlessly repeat the kind of the keyword or the promotion for Google to actually acknowledge and start to use that information? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, so part of your question was sort of how often. So I would say as a minimum once a month, update that listing. Once a month, put something on there.
And then ideally,
ideally, at least once every 2 weeks or once a week if you can. I mean, once a week is great because you're just constantly sending Google's signals to Google every 7 days to say, look, this is what we're doing now, and this is what we want to be found for. This is what we offer.
Updates, it's across review responses, it's across products, it's getting photos uploaded,
Q&As, everything like that. Keep it consistent and give Google as much information as you can. They've given you loads of opportunities to do it, so don't just ignore them. Don't be negligent of them. You have to use them.
Makes sense. And then obviously that's a lot of effort, right? It's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. And of course, if you don't have the time, then you can use an agency like Local Insights, but that's a no-brainer. Get in touch if you need some help or have any questions. But the why, like why do you want to spend so much time on your Google listing? That's key for me. Like, why do businesses want to invest or do it themselves and put the effort in? Like, what's the upside? What's like have you got any good examples of like where it's really helped a business out?
Yeah, well, a really good example, actually, one that I was working on last year was a deli in London.
Okay.
A deli in Chelsea. So we worked with one of their other delis and one of their restaurants in Mayfair, and the lady reached out to me and she was like, look, we're opening another deli in Chelsea. This was probably about March last year. It's due to open sort of September time. Is there anything we can do? So what you can do with your Google listing is you can set it up and set a date for it to open in the future.
Okay.
So you could say with this one, for example, we set it up in March, we set for it to open in September. And during this period, you can do everything that you can with a business that's open. So we put a business description, we were doing content every other week. We were getting imagery on there of what's coming, what's going to happen. And then it reached the point, they delayed launch a little bit. It opened in October 2023, I think it was. And in that first month, they had like over 1,000 people ask for directions to the business, over 1,000 people clicking through to the website. And
this is a new business. So.
New business. And if you were looking for a deli in Chelsea, if you're in Chelsea and you're putting deli near me or here searching deli Chelsea, they're in the top 3. And actually, they've only been open for a matter of months.
But wait there, you said it doesn't take long. Well, you said it takes time.
It takes time. Well, it's been a year since we started.
Oh, okay.
So you can do it ahead of time.
So that pre-game really works.
If you're prepared, then you'll see the results from it.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And then on results, I think results are a really key point just to touch on. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, like direction requests. There's a number of like actionable outcomes to people jumping on a Google listing that usually means for businesses that they've got a new client.
Yeah,
I think you've got direction requests, you've got calls, you've got website visits. Mm-hmm. Like, how easy is it to understand your success in terms of you're putting the effort in? You want to make sure you get a return on that effort. How easy is it to understand the return when you're working on a Google listing? What are the things you look for?
So I think with us, of course, I mean, anyone on our service gets a report. So they get a full documented report of what's gone through the listing, how many views they've had, whether it's search, maps, mobile, how many people ask for directions, click the website, all that good stuff. But I think at the end of the day, the best way for you to find out how it's working for you is simply to ask people. So similar to reviews, I have this conversation with clients quite often. They're like, how do I know it's working? How do I know that where people are coming from? You've got to ask them. If you don't ask new people coming in, where did you find out about us? It takes 2 seconds to ask.
And that will just support the data that you can see.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to know that everyone's going to go through Google, whether, I trust you, Dan, but if you recommend me a restaurant, I'm still going to go and Google it. So everything is probably going to pass through that Google listing at some point. But
that can I just touch on that? That's such a good point. That's like word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of businesses, they don't feel like they need to put the effort into Google because they think that word of mouth is like just their be all and end all. Mm-hmm. And if word of mouth is your be all and end all, I think what you just said there is brilliant. Because what's the first thing you're going to do? So if we're talking, I'm going to, let's say you're coming down to Harpenden, where I live, and you're like, okay, Dan, I'm taking the lady out, want to go for a meal, where do I go? And I'm going to say, okay, I quite like, I don't know, you got Zaza's, you got Silver Cup, like both really good restaurants, really scrummy. But what's the first thing you do? You're not just gonna like walk in, are you?
No. Well, I don't even know where it is. How do I get there? Are you going to give me directions?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Exactly.
And like I said, I want to see what it looks like. I want to know how to get there. I want to see the menu. I want to see, how much it's going to cost me. I want to get an idea for those things. So yeah, as I said, as much as I trust you, Dan, I'm still going to Google it.
So if your listing looks rubbish, actually that word of mouth that's golden,
it's not really worth much.
Could literally get put down the toilet if it looks rubbish.
Basically, yeah. It's not all about drumming up and finding new clients just through Google. It's about the like you said, the recommendations, or if they see your social media, they're going to Google you, or everything passes through that listing at some point. So
you need it all to be on point all the time.
100%.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, good. I think there's some really good tips there. There's some really good intel, Aaron.
Thank you, mate.
You did awesome. Nice. What would be your number one thing? Like if you could tell our audience one thing that they can do to really supercharge their listing, other than of course reaching out to us just to get some advice, what would be maybe the most important thing?
So the most important thing, I think, it always shocks me how many people don't actually have access to their own Google listing. That shocks me.
Yeah.
There's quite a few where they're set up by an old website guy or someone who used to work there, or an old marketing guy. They don't have access to it. So number one is get access to your listing.
That's
right? Number one is get in there.
You can't do anything unless you have access.
Can't do anything without it. So get in there.
What happens like on that? Like that's okay. They haven't got access, right? Well, they probably haven't got access because they don't know how to get access.
Yeah.
So how do they get access if they don't have access?
I mean, all you've got to do is go onto Google's platform. So Google Business Profile Manager, they can sign in and they can request access to their business from there. There's a few different options and ways Google give you to do it. Go down a little bit of a rabbit hole on that. I don't want to go too far into that. But that's as simple as it is. Google Business Profile Manager, go in, sign in, request access to your business. And then when you've got it, finally, just get information on there, get something on there, fill out all those opportunities Google gives you. Like I said, there's so many times where I come into a listing for the first time and they've done little bits, but then there's other sections missing. And it's like, if you're going to do it, spend a bit of time doing it, do it properly, and you'll thank yourself.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, love it.
Perfect.
Good tip. So I think that's a wrap. I think, look, audience out there, if you've got a Google listing and you don't have access and you do need a hand, reach out. Like, we can help you with it. We can get you access and get you in control, which I think is really important. And then if you don't have the time to do it yourself, just drop us a message. Keep in touch with the pod. Like, we'll help you. We'll get you on track. We'll get you in front of more people, and we'll get you more inquiries, which I think is really important. But I think the most important thing out of everything is right at the very beginning of this pod. It's like the Google listings. It's the first thing people see when they search for local business. So do everything you can to make sure when people see you, they're impressed and they want to come to you. So yeah. There you go. That's a wrap. Thank you, Aaron. You've been awesome.
Thank you, mate.
And we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.
Bye.